Welcome back to the Thera mod Abridged, where last time we held off assaults by the vampires, well, one way or another, but we're still facing plenty of resistance from them. We had to take down one of their field armies back up in the Viking area, and there are absolutely billions of vampire armies currently swarming over our little base on their continent. Even after reinforcing with a second army, we've still got lots of work to do, and we're going to begin the work right now. We need to get rid of some of these armies, so I'm going to sally out against the main siege of the castle. It's an even setup, but the enemy have no general, that will impact their morale, and I figured we can just fight our way out and then go and attack the other army that's besieging the fort nearby. This battle begins when they send their gun cav to attack me. I'm just going to stand here and take all the shots because we can spam the back with arrows, and we've got a line of our own guns out front. So that does the business pretty fast and we repel them. But then things start to get more difficult because in they come with the knights. And the knights first get a nice charge on our melee lines. That unit of pirates is having a bad day. And then we're going to see we do lack things that can actually kill the knights. In the classic medieval 2 Total War tradition, knights have extremely high close combat stats, so even after they're done charging and stuff, they're very difficult to actually kill with regular units. So we're going to try and micro our archers and gunners and our gun cav to do something about it. We do have a couple of anti-cav infantry units as well, but for the most part those hussars are absolutely annihilating us, and there are blood knights on the other flank doing the same thing. Here was a case where I was setting up to try and shoot into the back of those blood knights, but there's too much uncommitted enemy infantry for my cav to sit here, so we have to pull back immediately to avoid anything bad happening right there. The main thing I wanted to do was shoot them, because presumably gun attacks ignore armor to some degree, and it appeared to do something. There's also the chance that your gun attacks will rout the enemy because they are going to have low morale in this battle due to the lack of a commander that I mentioned. It was me trying to get our archers to shoot at their cav at close range. They're actually shooting at some more distant cav at long range, well, still doing some work there. And I do need to put a tiny bit of effort into actually winning the battle aside from all this cav specific micro. Here's an example of that micro, trying to get these gunners to blow those hussars away at close range. The thing is, gunners don't really work like that, in that they don't work in general. They'll only really fire in absolutely ideal conditions, usually conditions where they haven't moved so far in the battle. So we're able to get the odd shot on the enemy, which will inflict a morale penalty, but doesn't do very much damage. We appear to win on the right flank. We rout everything that isn't the Blood Knights, so the right flank's looking okay. And then we just carry on sacrificing archers, sacrificing everything to keep those cav in melee so I can keep shooting them. And at the back, trying to micro some kind of a broad victory by sending my cav after their archers and such, and trying to kill routing units before they come back. So it's all happening, but we're taking extreme casualties in these small fights that are left on the front line, and we're very slowly killing the enemy. We're going to be trading extremely poorly using archers in melee against the Blood Knights, but there's not that much else we can do. It's worth it to allow our ranged attacks to still go off, I think, to sacrifice other ranged units. And over time, it does actually get the job done. We are chipping away at their numbers, and because we've killed the rest of the army, that's going to put them in a low morale state as well. So something is happening here, slowly but surely. We're not quite out of the fire, there are still more regular units we need to get rid of. But the enemy army's basically dead. We killed like 90% of it, and then eventually it just came down to killing the heavy cav that was still on the field. My gun cav finally shot the hussars away, and now we come to do the same thing to the Blood Knights. They're basically dead, they still haven't routed. They were at wavering morale from like 50 troops all the way down to 7, so they have a very big wavering section it seems. Eventually they rout and that ends the battle. We win and we totally killed their army, but we lost half of our own force in the process, so very messy. It went much worse than I'd hoped or expected. But still, we need to go ahead with the plan, so I just grabbed some mercenaries to fill out our ranks a bit more, and now we'll plough on and attack the second besieging army, which has our guys under siege in a fort. We're going to do this as a sally from the fort so that we're controlling the more powerful of the two armies, although this did immediately become an issue, because having the AI control the other army means the AI kind of sets the pace of the battle. You can see on the minimap, the AI army just charged at the enemy right away and got this fight going before I was done coming out of the fort to form up for the battle. The one advantage this has is that the enemy split in two. Half of them are now fighting with my allies up on this hill, and the other half are coming to fight me. Looks like those fire arrows are surprisingly effective against those armoured cav, probably because from behind their shield stats don't apply things like that. So I just need to cross my fingers and hope the AI isn't going to get too many of my troops killed here skirmishing with the enemy's deadly heavy cav. And it would probably be a good idea for me to stop looking at it and actually fight the battle, because as you can see I missed the enemy attacking me, so now I need to get things in order. At least we're not facing that many enemies. The enemy formation is all over the place. Some surrounds here will be quite easy to pull off. I wanted to sneak some cav into the middle of the mess to do the old skirmish route stuff against their skirmishing units, but it doesn't quite work here because these guys not only aren't on skirmish mode, but they're armoured, so they don't die or run away. Therefore, trying to drive their ranged units off the field and make them useless doesn't really do much. Needed to pull my cav out to stop them being damaged, in fact. Meanwhile, we do have some grenadiers on the field today, and they're going to prove extra good against those deadly heavy cav. Much less trouble with them this time, since we can blow them up. That's going to rout them and get rid of them. So we just need to micro our all-important anti-everything grenade unit to bring those guys down. They have the same issue as the gunners, where getting them to fire can be difficult, but when they do fire it pretty much guarantees kills, which the gunners don't seem to have on their side, so that's all good. Here's a nice charge into the back of the enemy's general's bodyguard. Lances down, medieval 2 charge thing. I don't quite know what it does, but charging while the knights have their lances down makes it better, which just happens if you charge for long enough, I think. There are some blood knights causing trouble in the centre. I was going to try and get my grenadiers to micro their way in there and take them out, but as it happened we killed the enemy general, or captured him. This caused a chain rout and we didn't have to go through the microing of the last deadly units. So we kill what we can and get to this result. That's more like it, more acceptable losses and more like what I wanted to see from our earlier attempt as well. So there we go, we've broken both of the current sieges, but we know the enemy have plenty more stuff still for us to fight. I noticed my faction leader has lost all of his authority. In the past in this series I mentioned he had max authority, I seem to remember, but it's now min authority, and part of the reason seems to be this not yet crowned trait. He needs to sit in a settlement for a turn to become crowned, although that's only -3 authority, so it doesn't explain our vastly missing authority stat at the moment. But anyway, we do sit in the settlement this turn, and we do get crowned, so that's nice. He also finds a knife, I guess that comes with the crown. Very good, so now we have non-zero authority, that's less risky. I don't know how long we've been going with 0 authority, but I thought we had 10, so I was probably playing things way too risky for a while there. As you can see, another siege has started, not a siege of the castle this time, which is nice, a turn to do some repairs and stuff. We've also got reinforcements coming down from the Viking front, where we don't really need them anymore. We can't do much with them this turn, so we'll just set up another base and have them sit here. The goal was to get us up to 3 armies, but realistically, this new army will just be used to filter into the existing 2 armies after they've been beaten to death. And part of that beating is going to happen right now, because we need to fight another battle to clear up this siege on one of those armies. This time we're not going to rely on the AI to control any units, since we do have some space in our army. I just think this will make things a bit easier, even though it means we have fewer troops. So we line up very neatly facing the enemy. They're in a forest, and it's always really annoying in this game to attack forests because you can't see what's going on. So even more so than usual, we want to bait the enemy into attacking us, and we have the perfect unit for doing that. We've got the Greystoke Rangers. They can snipe away and kill enemy stuff until eventually they start to shuffle forwards. Their horse archers started sniping away at my gunners here, probably their regular archers as well, so we're going to pull back with those guys and try to tempt the enemy to come a bit further forward to make sure they're in range of all of my archers, the perfect counter to horse archers. Here's me absolutely wrestling with the controls. I wanted to move my archer line forwards, but because they're in a group, this affects how you can give orders and slightly off-centers the place where you're clicking compared to where they go. I can't be bothered to explain it, but Medieval 2's controls are out of the window really. 3 Kingdoms Total War absolutely perfected controls, and I really just can't go back to all of this jank. But here we are, still managing. That's part of the reason I really like not moving. It just avoids any issues with the controls. As you can see, we do defeat those mounted skirmishers who come up to our line and get shot by stuff. Then we just keep sitting here, because the enemy do get tempted to come out and fight us on our little bit of a hill. I'm going to fall back with this group that I was going to use to outflank the enemy, because it became clear that we weren't really going to be outflanking them. They were just going to end up taking the brunt of the attack if they were too far out. Now those cav are going to be an issue. They're going to charge right into my pirates. Not much we can do about that. Should we just tank the charge and take the losses? But I've already ordered my grenadiers to throw a volley into that blob of horsemen. Only a couple of them actually do it as usual, but that's going to get us some kills. It probably inflicts a morale shock or something as well, similar to being shot with guns, I don't know. Across the rest of the line things are pretty safe because the enemy don't have many melee units in this army. They've got tons of archers you can see hiding at the back there, so I'm going to send some stuff to charge out after them. I'm going to micro my anti-heavy stuff units to go after their general who was breaking through in the centre, and otherwise try to just hold things together on the left flank. This all goes wrong instantly, because the enemy general disengages just after I gave the orders. This causes these knights to go and get stuck in amongst a whole bunch of units, and my grenadiers to go and stand in one of the melees. Don't need to wrangle them back out with some quick micro. I would keep the grenadiers on skirmish mode, but they're one of these units that has to get so close to the enemy to attack that skirmish mode can cause them to never attack because they keep turning around as they get into range. Anyway, we grind on, very messy as usual, but it is working for us. Our right flank has moved up and is engaging all of the enemy's range stuff, getting their guns, crossbows and archers into fights that we're going to easily win, and eventually their general in the centre routs, and this effectively brings an end to the battle because everything else starts routing as well. There was something somewhere that didn't rout until the very end, but we effectively played into a rout phase and slaughtered everything as they ran off the field, giving us this result. In the end, another one that's acceptable. Not as good as the results we used to get against weaker factions, but it's going to have to do against these vampire guys. After this, I did actually consider doing another battle, but after learning that none of my commanders here had the night attack ability, which I would need to engage this set of 3 armies standing next to each other, I decided instead to hunker down. We've got our 3 bases here. We'll recruit stuff and wait for more reinforcements to be delivered by sea. I managed to forget to bring any spies over again, so I'm back to spying with my low strength units as sacrifices, and here we actually walk right into an ambush. Not sure why they were ambushing on that bit of border, but there you go, it paid off for them. Now we're going to look at an attack down in the central continent. We've got this Taha place under siege. There are loads of enemies queuing up nearby, and it seems like they might try to relieve the place eventually. So I thought, let's actually attack. We never do siege attacks in this series because I'm lazy, but this time we have a cannon unit in our army. So we can use these guys to potentially reduce the risk. What I wanted to see was a breach in the wall get opened, and then we can just run through it. No annoying fighting on the walls or getting shot by towers too much. We'll just charge into the town and make this a little bit faster than usual. The thing was, the cannons barely damaged the wall. I actually can't see its health right now, but eventually when I got close to the wall, it had barely been damaged at all after the use of tons of ammo. I think these particular cannons might suck. I can recruit some more expensive ones. And as you can also see, there was a bit of an issue. I sat here watching it happen, making no attempt to stop it, just because I wanted to see if it would happen. But yes, they will shoot through your own siege towers, and we lose a siege tower as a result. Now, another feature of this battle is that our second army, also involved in the siege, is here, trying to attack on the other side of the map. The AI is obviously not going to do an enormously good job at that. But this prompted me to maybe go a bit harder on my own attack. I figured the cannon isn't destroying the wall anytime soon. We probably need to make a supporting attack so that the AI army doesn't run into too much trouble. So that's why I started to advance, and along the way discovered the cannons had barely done anything anyway, so this was probably always going to happen. We've got an unopposed attack we can make on the north wall, that's nice, and the AI has got 1 tower's worth of troops up here onto the western wall. They actually have many towers and rams that they left behind in their deployment zone, the AI that is. So They're being pretty bad about this. What they're trying to do is pull everything behind a single ram to attack the southern gate, but they're being absolutely slammed by towers and archers the entire time, taking enormous casualties, all good stuff. So now all we can do is push forwards and try to make a big attack ourselves. Our towers arrive at the wall and our ram arrives at the gates, but I noticed the gates actually open. I thought this might be my chance to do some cheeky exploits by running up to the gate. If some guy accidentally puts his foot onto the other side, it will count as us capturing the gate, and then we can go on through. There are a few obstacles, including the boiling oil, but more importantly, the fact that I just couldn't get close enough in this particular gate to make it say that I've captured it. So, while the gate remains open, we can't go through. What I need to do is reset up the ram and hope it closes so that we can ram it. But while I was waiting, the enemy eventually came out and a fight breaks out in the gateway anyway. Our unopposed attack on the wall is now going to be used for what I thought would be a clever ploy. I was setting up my gunners near the capture point because they can shoot on the enemy's elephants that are sitting around there. The swordsmen will come along to support our attack in the east. We've got some archers to kill in melee and some of the warriors of Kesh, or something they're called, guys who are basically the same as my pirate sword unit. But of course, fighting beneath enemy towers means the enemy have the advantage. Also, we're playing on hard, which gives them an unspecified advantage, which can be quite large as we've seen already in this series, so not the best melees. It was the thing I wanted to avoid, but unfortunately here we are doing it. Our allies have opened up that southern gate and are absolutely spamming their way through with everything. This is nice because it is going to divide the enemy's attention. Looks like we successfully defeated the enemy units trying to stop us getting onto the western wall. That's all good. I was wondering why I was losing troops here on the northern wall, because there's nothing here to activate the towers, meaning they shouldn't be allowed to shoot at me. It's because of something I forgot. I'm not sure if it's only in this mod, but the castle next to the capture point, the keep area, has some kind of unmarked towers. Some buildings will shoot arrows, and they're not marked as active towers, and they don't require the enemy to be there to activate them, as far as I can tell. I've only seen it happen once before, and I didn't remember that that was a thing in this battle, so I thought I was just losing units for unknown reasons that I didn't have time to look into, but that was probably the actual reason. And then another reason comes along. The elephants that I wanted to target with these gunners are sitting there throwing their javelins up at me, and we're experiencing the grand problem with my plan. It doesn't work at all. This isn't like in some of the later Total Wars, where it's kind of possible to get onto the walls and shoot into a settlement. Here, your guys have to face backwards. The odd guy is willing to turn around and shoot at the elephants, but broadly speaking, this plan didn't do anything except cause us to lose this gun unit. They're being killed by towers. The presence of the elephants means the towers adjacent to my gunners are now activated as well, and the elephants themselves are killing us. Broadly speaking, an enormous failure. And speaking of enormous failure, let's see what the AI is doing with our other army. Well, I think they're trying to run them towards the capture point, but they're being slammed by those elephants quite a lot along the way, so that's nasty. We have almost broken through the gateway now and won that battle, so I can pull my cavalry inside to help out with this. We have unfortunately though pretty much lost the fights on the walls. I thought we'd actually win at least one of them, but we are being killed and we didn't even successfully defeat their archers in melee. Here's a bit of an issue. Some amok elephants running out of the settlement run over a whole bunch of our guys who had just come through the gate. Not too many casualties, handily enough. But yes, what I'm trying to do here is get my gun cav to come and shoot all of the stuff in this melee in front of me. That's our main hope for defeating the enemy's elephants at this stage. There's another check-in with my failed gunners who are now nearly dead. The gun cav plan failed broadly because perhaps it was just because I wasn't microing them, but at some point they all died while I wasn't looking at them, or the majority of them died. And the elephants are still marauding around up and down these streets. The map's actually pretty good for elephants because all of our stuff is forced to be concentrated into choke points, and then they can just run us over. We have though actually got the capture point, so this is becoming more and more my focus. I'm just putting things here and hoping we can actually hold out for the 4 minutes. We don't necessarily have to bring the elephants down this way, which is good because we're running out of things that can effectively bring them down. One of their units makes its way outside where my last units are still gradually making their way in, mainly the archers. I'm going to have some of them stop to fight with those elephants, others run in through the gate to come and join the fray, but some more amok elephants actually causes a bit of trouble. Another one slams through a massive column of my archers. Nasty. So this battle has gone much worse than I expected. Virtually everything went wrong actually, and lots of things took me by surprise, so we've learned a lot of lessons at least. However, at this stage we're finally getting to the point when we're going to win. We've got a massive balance bar advantage. The enemy can't get back into the capture point, and as it happens they chain routed, attempting to do so, ending the battle but with pretty large casualties. Didn't quite lose half of both armies, but we lost about 3/4 of an army overall to take this castle. Might have been better to wait and fight a field battle if they tried to relieve the place. Plus I learned afterwards the AI lost 3 generals in that fray. Very nasty. I was so outraged I thought let's go back and see what would have happened if I just auto-resolved it. Well actually it went worse, we lost more troops. So I'm forced to accept the manually resolved result even though I didn't like it very much. We'll just have to piece together an army from the scraps on both sides now and send what's left back north to hide and recuperate. The moral of this whole tale is never do siege attacks, or at least try and get some sort of good auto-resolve set up instead. It's probably a little bit better, or maybe just don't do them when the AI is controlling half your troops as well. Anyway, at the start of the next part, we'll be looking into this battle. I'm fighting the army that showed up for the jihad against one of my settlements. Curiously, they actually walked just past the settlement to besiege a fort with a few troops in it. They were particularly interested in that. So okay, we've missed the chance to do a siege defense or something, but it's a pretty standard looking field battle that should allow us to finish them off.